Professor Hornbeak here, teaching on InDesign. So this is our very first lesson in InDesign. It's getting you started with your workspace and learning how to create a document, etc. So here is a window here that has a lot of options. I'm going to kind of explain through. And I got to this new document window by going to File and New. And you'll see that there are three options when you go to File and New. There's Document, Book, and Library. Unless you are creating an actual chapter book or a library of books, you'll want to choose Document. I know that sounds kind of weird, especially if you're making a 30-page magazine, but that's what you'll choose for the majority of your projects. So File and New, and then Document. You can also see it right here where it says Create New, or if you have an existing document, you go to Open. So InDesign works a little bit differently than other Adobe products. InDesign was created to manage very large multi-page publications. So that way you can work on multiple pages at a time and they're all in order, as well as some other features where, say, you have the same thing in the right corner of every page. There's ways of editing those all at once. So InDesign actually replaced a very old software called Quark a while ago. I've actually used Quark, and when Adobe came out with their own Quark, we were all just so happy because Quark was extremely expensive, and I mean, it was like $500 to $600 per year or per update, and it was just so slow and so difficult. And a lot of the same elements are still in it, but Adobe has kind of perfected those, and there's a reason why we haven't heard about Quark in a really long time. So InDesign I'm going to show you here in a minute, when you pull in images into InDesign, they don't necessarily save into the InDesign file itself. So InDesign is kind of like they're just linking to other files, and the reason for that is when it first came out, computers were just they couldn't handle that much content within one file. So if you can imagine having a 60-page catalog and there being, 300 images within this catalog, it was just too much for the computers at the time to handle with the graphics card and the processor. So InDesign, the people who created InDesign created a way to link to those sources, so they are external from InDesign and they're not constantly loading. So when you have an image on a page, you're actually just seeing a preview of the image. And you'll notice, like, when you're working on it, you'll think, oh no, my image is super pixelated and super low res and I need to replace it. That's probably just the display preference on there, and once it's printed, it'll be full res. So that's a little bit about InDesign. InDesign, like I said, is created to make, normal projects, but it's most famous for the multi-page projects. So I'm going to show you how to to set up an article style printout. So InDesign is most well known for print. I'm going to click on print, and you have all these options here. I'm going to click on letter here, 8.5 by 11. I'm just going to go ahead and title this article. And orientation is portrait. That's great. Pages, I'm going to give it 3 pages. And I'm actually going to start on page 2 just to show you the difference. And this is normally default checked, but make sure this is checked. Facing pages just means that there are 2 pages right beside each other, meaning a spread. You can see the entire spread. And then I'm going to add 2 columns to each page. And whenever you have the option, whenever you get to these margins and the column gutter and all of that, especially the margins, you'll want to, before you start on your project, it's really so much easier and so much more efficient to go ahead and find out from the printer what those margins should be. And a lot of printers will actually have their own templates, their own InDesign templates. So it might even be easier than that. You don't even have to create the new document. You can just open up the template and work from there. But that makes everything, once you're done, so much easier. I can't tell you how many times I've just like, here's the new document, and worked on stuff, and a week later I've finished it, and then I realize that the margins are like a quarter of an inch off, and I have to change every single page to make it fit. With even that small amount of difference, you have to kind of scoot everything over just slightly. So it's really important to know exactly what your print will be like, especially when you're printing. So I'm going to hit create, and you'll see these 2 pages and then this 1 page. I had 3 total pages. So like I said, I started on page 2, which means that I don't have a page 1, which would normally be up here. Whenever you open a book, you don't have a spread. As soon as you open a magazine, there's usually not a spread. It's usually the back of the cover and then the first page. So this is just a document for the internal part of a magazine. But I'm going to show you real quick. If you want to change any of those settings that I used, you can go to File, Document Setup, and you can change it from starting page 2 to page 1. And I'll show you how it's different. You'll see how you just have this lonely page right here, and then 2 pages. And then if you add more, it'll just be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So this is kind of like when you open up the magazine, that very first paper that is the thinner paper, and then the spread here. So that's a little bit about setting up your workspace. And I'm going to just show you a little bit about all of these tools right here. So this little toolbar looks really similar to a lot of other Adobe products. You have your white tool, your black arrow, your white arrow, similar to Illustrator. And you have lots of fun like shapes and that kind of thing. I recommend, if you are designing, to do as much as you can in Illustrator and Photoshop. These are kind of dumbed down versions of some of the things that Photoshop and Illustrator can do, just for convenience. You could still make a square with a colored square with text on top kind of thing if you want to, but it's really just for ease, for those simple kind of elements. And I'm going to talk about this little rectangular frame tool that's actually for images. But all these you probably recognize here. If you want to change the color, anything, you can double click, change the color. And then of course all of these tools here, the options for the tools are at the top. You'll see how they change at the top. So, and then over here, similar to other Adobe software, you have these little windows. And if you're looking for a specific window, there are, InDesign, like others, have kind of anticipated what you want to do with your project, and show windows that will do, say, interactive for PDF, which is something that we use. So I'm going to just hide these away because they're in the way. So we have all of these nice little windows that we can use. A line is a great one. See if you have 2 shapes that you want to perfectly align in a certain way. Just make this color. Then you can select both of them holding the Shift key, and you can align them perfectly like so without having to eyeball it or that kind of thing. So that's helpful. Let's do this one. You'll probably mostly use these right here on the top right. So align, pages. This one's usually at the top. That's funny. at the top right here. So pages, usually the most used window here. So you can see all of your pages at once. If you want to add a page, you can add it like so. Double click on it, go straight to it. And that's pages and links. So like I said, InDesign does not store your images. It will store shapes like this, but if you pull in an image, then it will include it here. And so that way, if you took one of your pictures or illustrations you brought in and moved it, it's going to show this little question mark. It's like, I don't know where it is. So you have to help InDesign know where everything is, because it's linking it just like a URL. It's linking it to one of your files. So make sure you don't move anything, and I'll show you more on how to save your work so InDesign can always find your files. So that's a little bit about links. Color, stroke, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then I'm going to talk some more about some of these later. So that's a little bit about your workspace in InDesign and getting set up. Continue to watch more videos to learn more about InDesign.